Hi everyone, it's me, Mimi Combs, and today I'm going to be talking about all the books that I read in 2018. So this year has been okay, I guess, as far as reading goes. I've gone through really big phases, so I'll have times where I'll read like a ton of books at one time, and then I might go months without reading. So it's been good for the number of books that I've read, but I'm not really consistent, so I really hope that I make that better, and that might be one of my goals for 2019. As for the number of books I read 15 books in total, and that includes all the books that I read for high school, and I think there's like 3 of those. So 3 of these books are school books, and I was forced to read them, so I wouldn't know if you would count those. If not, I have 12 books, which is still more than I read last year. So 15 is the amount of books that I read this year, and I'm kind of proud. I did kind of give myself one book that I haven't finished yet, but hopefully by the time that this video goes up on New Year's, I will be finished with it, so I'll let you know. But I only have like 90 pages left, so I thought I'd include that one. And I also have 2 other videos about this, so you can look back on my channel for all the books I read in 2016 and all the books I read in 2017 videos. So in those videos I talked about some other books that I really enjoyed and some books I didn't enjoy, so you can kind of get a good idea of what you want to be reading next year. My goal for 2019, of course, is to read more books than I did this year. It might be a little bit harder than last year because I only read 11. This year I did read 15, so my new goal will be to read more than 15. So getting on into the books that I've read. The Selection by Kiera Cass. I did not read the other books in this series, so you can kind of see what my opinion is. I didn't enjoy it. I mean, it was interesting. I listened to it as an audiobook, and it was my first time ever listening to an audiobook, so it was a kind of new experience. But as for the story itself, I wasn't a huge fan of it. I found it really annoying, I guess. The main character was really annoying. I thought some of the ideas in the book were interesting, but the character, I just hated how like she kept leading both of the love interests on, and it just really bothered me that like the love triangles are always annoying, and so I don't know, that kind of bothered me. I think the whole series is just, it's too long for like how little happens, and after reading this book I did not want to go for the next 2, so I just asked my friends what happened, and I really don't think I would have gotten that much better of an experience if I had read those books rather than them telling me what happens. So the next book that I read was Genuine Fraud by E. Lockhart, and I was interested in reading this book because E. Lockhart actually came to my school and gave us a big talk about all her books and why she liked this one, what she thought was interesting about it, so it kind of made me want to read it, and so I went ahead and then I got the ebook, read it, and I wasn't actually too impressed with it. I enjoyed We Were Liars a lot more. This one was interesting, definitely, but I didn't connect with the main character since the main character's they're not good. I don't know, it's like questionable. You don't really agree with what the main character does, and I think it makes it harder for me to be okay with the story. Also, the way it was told, while interesting, it was told with the chapters going backwards, so it ends with the end. It starts with the end of the book. So I was so confused the entire story, and I wasn't able to really enjoy it as much as I would have if I just read it from front to back, you know? And I guess I could have read the chapters in opposite order than I did, but I just read it in the way the book wanted me to, and I thought it was kind of strange. I would try it out though if you are interested in like mysteries or like questionable characters. I don't know, that's just not my thing, so I didn't enjoy that book too much. The next book that I read was Geekerella by Ashley Poston, and I loved this book. Okay, so after the 2 that I just told you about, I was so glad to read this book. I think I read this after a long reading slump after the other 2, and I was so glad that I did because I enjoyed this book so much. It's a Cinderella retelling about a cosplayer and I think she's the daughter of the parents of that ran a cosplay convention. And then there's also this actor who's playing in this new remake of a classic TV show. It's supposed to be like Star Trek, but it's not Star Trek. You can kind of tell it's based off of Star Trek though. So I really enjoyed it, and also they're coming out with a sequel this year, and I was able to get the first few chapters, and I'm really looking forward to the second book. I don't really know what else to say about this other than it's like a romantic book, I guess. I've never read a retelling before, and so I was kind of nervous because I didn't want it to be too like expectant, and I didn't want to know too much about the story. Of course, like I've seen a ton of Cinderella retellings, like all these movies and stuff. So I thought this one was actually really fresh and new. And while I was reading it, I actually like forgot what was gonna happen. So like when they got to like the cliche like Cinderella stuff, I didn't notice it, or I was shocked, which was actually kind of strange, and I'm surprised because I know Cinderella fairly well. The next book I read was Mind Speak. It was a book that my friend recommended to me. The Kindle book is free on the Amazon store, so if you want to read it, just go ahead. You have no excuse. It's also a series, so that might be like they put the first book free and then you have to pay for the others. I only read the first book though, and I thought it was interesting. I can definitely see why my friend liked it, because it has a lot of, I don't really know how to say anything about it without spoiling it though. So yeah, it's just about this girl who doesn't really know too much about her past, and there's a bunch of people, and like her dad, I think, works for this big company or something, and she doesn't know much, and then someone shows up and like has all these answers, and she just wants them to like tell her, and so I enjoyed it, and I think it's a good book. The fifth book that I read this year is Warcross by Marie Lu, and I don't know, it's kind of like reflecting oddly on the camera, but I love this cover. It was the original hardcover, and I'm so happy that I got this book. I actually have it signed. They had like a book fair at my school, and this book was signed, so I had to buy it even though I had already read it. But I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was really exciting, really fast-paced, and really just, it's like an adventure and also really fun. I don't know, I thought it at first that it was going to be kind of like light and like fun and just an adventure book, but by the end it gets into like deeper things, and all my friends like it, and I recommend this book. The reason I'm so like enthusiastic about it right now is because I'm reading the sequel, and I'll get to that later in this video, but the sequel's good as well. So if you haven't read Warcross yet, I really recommend it to you. It's about a girl, like only a little bit in the future, like it's near future, and she's playing this virtual reality video game along with like everyone else, but it's just like a big deal, so it's really cool and I recommend it. Yeah. The next two books I read in 2018 were from school. So I read The Kite Runner and In the Time of the Butterflies. The Kite Runner I thought was pretty interesting, I guess. Of course, these two books probably were more ruined for me because I had to like examine them really closely in school and like interpret them. I thought they were both like interesting, but I wasn't enjoying them too much while we were reading them. I guess The Kite Runner is more suspenseful, and then In the Time of the Butterflies, I think I might have enjoyed that one more. I'm not really sure. Neither of these books I had a great experience with because I had to like write essays that were graded and everything, but I think they were good. The next two books I read were for my book club at school. The first book I read was The Murder of Roger Ackroyd by Agatha Christie, and it's the first classic mystery I've really read, and it had a different writing style that I was used to. They used a lot of words back in the day that I just don't know. But I did really love speculating about like what happened, and since all my friends were reading at the same time, I could like tell them all these really cool theories. I remember like I had the best theories about what happened, and it was so interesting. Of course, the ending, everyone said that it was like a plot twist or like it was surprising, but you know, I had all these theories, so like the ending seemed really boring to me compared to my theories, so maybe that's just me, but yeah. Okay, the next book I read for the book club was Emergency Contact by Mary H.K. Choi. It's a YA romance contemporary novel about two people and they become emergency contacts because, yeah, but they're not really emergency contacts, it's just what they call themselves, and they just start texting, and I'll just leave it at that. But I think it's really interesting because the characters are so different and so unique, and I don't know, a lot of the conversations that are in the book and like the dialogues and stuff, it's kind of interesting. It's more like light and not much happens, and it's just kind of like this fun read. So I would recommend that if you're in for something like lighter and contemporary romance, you know, teen romance novel. So, and I recommend it. I think it was a good book. The 10th book I read this year is The Perks of Being a Wallflower by Stephen Chbosky. I wanted to read this book for so long because it's like popular and I guess like a classic book that people talk about, and I'd always heard about it and I'd seen like there was a movie about it, and I just wanted to read it because I wanted to know what it was about and see what everyone was talking about, you know. And this is like, I don't know, it was in the adult section. I guess it's about teenagers, but it is more like adult than other books. I personally think like this is more for like the adult-ish audience. It does have a lot of like more grown-up things in it, but I did enjoy it, and you know, it's told in letters, so I thought that was interesting. And also like at first I didn't like it, but then I got used to it and it started getting like more normal for me. I had so many thoughts about this book when I first read it. So I thought it was really thought-provoking. It was just interesting to think about, and it like kind of stuck in my head a little longer than the other books. I accidentally Googled a spoiler to the story while reading it, so be careful not to do that, because I thought I had missed something, but it was actually this whole thing at the end. If you've read it, you know what I'm talking about, but like I was kind of confused because of that, and that might be the only thing that I'm kind of like negative about with this book, because they don't explain a lot like in the beginning, and you kind of just have to learn as you go along. And I think you can kind of infer like why the person's thinking the way they are, but it's just, I can't. I need that blatantly told to me. I need it expressed, you know. I don't want to spoil it, and I guess that's why I'm trying to like talk in riddles, but I do recommend this book. I mean, I don't think it's as in like a fun of a read as some other books, but I think maybe you should read it just like to say you've read it. Alright, after this, I read The Darkest Minds by Alexandra Bracken. I really enjoyed this book, so I went on to read the second book, Never Fade. I never did get around to finish In the Afterlight though, and I was really sad, and like I still don't know what happens, and it's really annoying, but I was like so invested in this story for the longest time, and I really like missed that, I guess. After I had read like The Maze Runner, that was a big time for me where I was like in a series, and I didn't really have that with any other books recently. So when I read The Darkest Minds, I was really happy to have that again. It is a like kind of dystopian novel about like a bunch of kids who have like superpowers kind of, and then people don't like that they have superpowers, so they're kind of taken away from their families, and it's like all this deal, and then all these kids are just, they have superpowers, and yeah. What I did think about this is it kind of does have those tropes, like in the second and third book it gets like to a point where I don't know how it's going to resolve, or it just like stops getting as interesting as in the first book. A lot of the stuff with like reminds me of like the Hunger Games, where in the first book it's like everything's new and interesting, and then after a while it gets kind of like we're just trying to escape, or like it's like it starts getting a little boring, you know. But I did really like it. There's a lot to keep you like invested in it, and I read these so fast. I think I read it in a couple days, and then I read the next one a few days later because I had a lot of free time. But yeah, I really enjoy this book, and I read it originally because the movie was coming out, and I wanted to be able to read the book before I watched the movie, even though I thought it's a little fat, I won't be able to finish the whole thing. I was, and the movie, while it's like kind of a teen, like, stereotypical movie, I do think it has a lot from the books and I really enjoyed it. It is a good way to like relive your memories from the book. I would recommend reading the book first though, because it's a lot better. So that's like the next 2 books. I read the 2 books, and then I guess I can show a picture of Never Fade, so you guys see what the cover looks like. That's the next book that I read after The Darkest Minds. After that, I read a book for school called The Crucible. I'm sure you've probably heard of that book. It's a play about the Salem witch trials. I did not enjoy it at all. Personally, I wasn't frustrated because I had given up on the characters so long before. You know what's gonna happen, you know, like, they're on trial, so yeah, it's just like, I kind of gave up on the characters. Like, after the first couple pages, like, I'm like, I don't care anymore, like, these people are stupid, and, like, that's their problem. Also, yeah, I don't know. There's something about just how short it was, how, like, I couldn't get invested in it. You know, it might just be something that doesn't translate from watching the play to actually, like, reading the book. If you haven't, just don't read it. Unless you have to for school. The next book I read is I Am the Messenger by Markus Zusak. So he's the author of The Book Thief, and I've read that book and really enjoyed it maybe a year or 2 ago. I read I Am the Messenger with my book club, and it's a really long book, but I also really enjoyed it, so it was really fast for me to get through. I did not finish it by the time of the book meeting, but I finished it afterwards. I enjoyed it. I thought it was really interesting. I was really invested in, like, the whole card thing. I was like, oh my gosh. And his dog. I loved his dog. I loved the cards. I just couldn't wait to see, like, what the next thing he was gonna have to do to, like help it out. And also, like, who the person was sending him these cards. And I loved everything about it. Just, like, the person, like, how he's so ordinary. And I don't know, it's just really interesting and really inspiring. And, like, help people out, you know, be, like, a nice human being, and I liked it, so I recommend that one. And the last book, like I said in the beginning of this video, is Wildcard by Mary Lou. It's the sequel to Warcross, and I'm really enjoying it because this book gets into some darker stuff than the first one. It digs a little deeper into, like, those questions and those, like, ethical things, and I really liked it. There's a lot of, like, gray area, I think, in this book with, like, good and bad, and it's just, like, I keep switching sides, and I want to see how it ends. I haven't finished it yet. I am, like, 90 pages away. You can see, like, my bookmark. I'm real close. Don't worry. I'm gonna finish this before the end of the year. I'm not lying. I will. I mean, I'm enjoying this book, and I do recommend that you check out Warcross because it's really great, and Wildcard is even better, so yeah. And that brings us to the end of this, what I read in 2018. Overall, I'm pretty proud with this list. I did end up reading more than last year, and I met my goal, my New Year's resolution that I set in the last video, but it will be hard next year because I've not been consistent. I think only 3 of those are the ones that I read after this school year, and so I have been doing badly. I think about half I read during the summer, which makes sense, but I want to read books more. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you have some good book recommendations, some good books that you don't want to read after this video because you heard my views, or, like, you have more knowledge when you go to pick out some books to read next time. Like, Happy New Year's, like, hope this year is good for your reading and everything, and yeah. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, click the push notifications because I upload infrequently, and, like, you know, you never know when I'm just gonna pop out in your subscription box, and you don't want to miss it when you do because I have been trying to post every single week. I skipped a couple weeks, but, like, I'm back at it, you know. I'm gonna film some more videos. I have one more list for 2018, like, but instead of reading, it's watching, so I don't know what that'll be up, but that one's gonna be probably interesting because I have a lot of thoughts, and yeah. Thanks for watching. Bye!